Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, with just days to go before France votes in a new president, we take a look at the two candidates' records when it comes to equality. Also, outrage as Saudi Arabia, a country you wouldn't necessarily equate with promoting gender equality, is elected to a UN Commission on Women's Rights. And born to be wild, well, almost. We meet the Jordanian women who proudly ride their Harley Davidsons on the streets of Amman. But we begin here in France, where on May 7th, people will choose either centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron or the far right's Marine Le Pen to become the country's next president. The two are presenting wildly different visions of how to lead the nation in the next 5 years. Our reporters met the respective campaign teams to find out exactly where each candidate stands when it comes to gender equality.
If elected, Emmanuel Macron says he wants to make gender equality a national priority, including making gains in the balance between work and family life.
Emmanuel Macron says he wants to increase funding for family planning, including providing more information on contraception and abortion access. He also wants to strengthen abortion rights. The challenge for gender equality is to move from equality that's written in the law to equality in real life.
As for the National Front, aside from a push for equal pay, women's rights aren't listed as a top priority in Marine Le Pen's national program.
Women's rights is first and foremost the right for women to behave exactly as they please, dress how they want, live how they want. Yes, for us the headscarf is a symbol of submission. We consider the burkini to be a symbol of submission. Marine Le Pen intends to defend women and their rights against these kinds of mentalities.
But Le Pen has received multiple criticisms from women's rights groups, who argue the National Front uses a feminist mask to promote Islamophobic sentiments. Topless protesters from the women's rights group Femin have interrupted several of Le Pen's speeches on the campaign trail in recent months. The group has previously criticized Le Pen's program, stating it does nothing to promote the empowerment of women. Women currently only make up 20% of French Parliament, a statistic that could change after legislative elections in June. Macron wants to see that number come to a 50-50 split between male and female MPs. Le Pen, on the other hand, says the National Front already has shown enough respect for gender parity in Parliament, signaling no need for gender quotas.
Now, some have described it as the equivalent of putting an arsonist in charge of a fire station. Saudi Arabia has been elected to the UN Women's Rights Commission, prompting outrage from many human rights groups. The panel's aims are to promote gender equality across the world with the empowerment of women. Yet Saudi women are banned from driving cars and at any age are legally required to have a male guardian to make all their decisions for them. Gender segregation also applies to all women and men who are not related. Joining me now from Amman, Jordan, is Adam Kugel, a researcher with Human Rights Watch and a specialist on Saudi Arabia. Adam, thanks for being with us. This is an extraordinary move. Why would the UN leadership allow such a thing to happen?
Well, unfortunately, in the UN, these decisions are made by individual UN member states. So Saudi Arabia is now on the UN Commission on the Status of Women because 47 member countries of the UN decided to put them on there. If you actually look at the math behind the voting, it's also very apparent that at least 5 European countries voted in favor of Saudi Arabia joining this commission. And unfortunately, it's part and parcel the approach we've seen towards Saudi Arabia from many UN agencies, including the UN Human Rights Council, which has now elected Saudi Arabia twice to serve as a member, despite its horrific human rights record.
But it sends a very clear message, doesn't it, to Saudi women attempting to liberate themselves from a lifetime of discrimination, and that is that the UN is backing the very people who are enforcing such rules and regulations.
Yeah, that's right. This move appears to contradict the aims of the committee itself, which is to promote gender equality and to promote women's empowerment. We see that a move like this, putting Saudi Arabia with its male guardianship system and its entrenched discrimination against women on such a commission, sends a message not only to Saudi activists fighting to end the system, that their efforts don't really matter. And it also sends a message to individual Saudi women attempting to flee discrimination that people in the world don't support them. Saudi Arabia is essentially being rewarded and recognized for very marginal women's rights reforms it's made over the last 10 years. Yet it has not made the most important reform, which is to treat women on an equal basis with men and to allow them to make their own life decisions, such as traveling abroad, getting to choose who they marry, among other things.
Why does Saudi Arabia want to be part of this commission?
Saudi Arabia has been keen to burnish its image on human rights issues for the last several years. We saw that not only with the vote on this commission and Saudi Arabia's desire to join the UN Commission on the Status of Women. We also saw it on Saudi Arabia's active participation at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. Saudi Arabia very much wants to be seen as a modernizing country, a country that is improving its human rights problems. And I think that they are also trying to claim credit for some of the positive steps that have been taken, which have included promoting more opportunities for women's employment, as well as expanding access to higher education for women in Saudi Arabia, which are really important, legitimate things that have happened. However, the fundamental fact of male control over women's lives in Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, has not changed.
And we've recently seen 2 Saudi women being very publicly arrested and detained, one attempting to leave for a new life in Australia, simply on the grounds that they wanted to make their own life decisions and leave the country.
Yeah, that's correct. In one case, Dina Ali, which really, I think, made a lot of impact on social media, a woman was attempting to flee to Australia from Kuwait, a Saudi woman, and when she arrived in Manila, she was prevented from boarding her connecting flight to Australia. She was held there, and then she was essentially forced on a plane back to Riyadh. We believe she's currently in detention. We don't know what's going to happen to her. She has a number of options. She could be returned to her family, at which we would be very concerned because she'd be at risk of violence. She could be, in fact, prosecuted for disobedience, which still happens in Saudi Arabia, or she could just be held in arbitrary detention for a long period of time in the women's shelter. All of these are terrible options. A woman who sought to change her life, to empower herself, is now essentially facing 3 terribly dreadful options, and all the while the country that did this to her is being rewarded by a UN agency.
So what should the UN be doing instead when it comes to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, frankly, the UN Commission on the Status of Women, instead of making Saudi Arabia a member, it should be investigating Saudi Arabia. It should be looking to help these Saudi women who are trying to change the situation there. It should be helping women who are trying to flee discrimination. It should probably put out a statement, saying that it stands with these women who are trying to liberate themselves from these very, very draconian forms of discrimination. Likewise, with the Human Rights Council, Saudi Arabia should have never been elected to that body, but now that it is a member, the other member countries of that body should in fact step in and be public about the fact that Saudi Arabia needs to change a lot of the abuses that continue to go on in that country.
Adam Kugel, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And finally, the roar of Harley Davidsons down a city street is not something you normally equate with the Middle East, even more so when the riders are female, as is the case in the Jordanian capital of Amman, where a group of women are challenging the country's conservative social norms.
Noor straps on her helmet and gets ready to set off for another ride. This housewife and mother of 2 is a lady of Harley, the women's division of Harley Davidson owners in Jordan. On her iconic motorcycle, she challenges the country's conservative social norms.
At first it was tough. It's already difficult being a woman riding a motorcycle, and it's even more difficult being a veiled woman riding a motorcycle. It's yet another hurdle. But I don't think the veil should stop me from riding. It's just another piece of clothing. And I'm wearing a helmet anyway, so it doesn't show, and I'm even more protected. It doesn't change anything.
Until 2008, riding a motorcycle was forbidden in Jordan for both women and men. Today, 4,000 bikers roam the country's streets, 200 of them women.
We have about 20 to 30 extra women joining the club each year, and the number keeps increasing. That includes both men and women. Obviously, there are more men, but I think it's a good thing that women are also joining.
But riding a motorcycle in Amman's traffic-choked streets is a risky affair. Bikers are still poorly perceived in the capital, and the risk of accidents is high. The ladies of Harley meet regularly to ride together through these perilous roads, also organizing gatherings and charity events.
We organise our own events. Some are just for fun, for the pleasure of being together. But more importantly, we also have charity events for orphans, for the elderly, people in need. We try to organise an event every 2 months with the group.
Jordanian bikers now want to change the way society perceives them. Noor hopes to become an inspiration for other women. She also dreams of one day riding safely around Amman with her entire family in tow.
Great to see. And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page. That's France24.51%. Or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far. And please do keep those comments coming in. So until our next program, bye for now.